everyone, and welcome back to Wonderland Explores. Today we're here at Magic Kingdom to explore Liberty Square.
Yeah, Walt Disney had a huge passion for American history and saw a place for it in Disneyland. A year after the park opened in 1956, Walt had a vision to create Liberty Street, and actually concept artwork was done. Attractions were even put together, but it failed. It never went through. In 1966, when Walt died, Roy decided to follow through with the Florida project, becoming Walt Disney World, and one of the things that he allowed Imagineers to work on was what became Liberty Square. So they took the vision of Liberty Street that Walt originally had, and the plans came to fruition here in Magic Kingdom.
Yes, so we're going to take you onto the Imagineering secrets here of Liberty Square. Come along with us as we explore. Are you checking into Liberty Square?
If you're looking to try out for the next season of The Voice, you could stop here and get singing lessons with Ichabod Crane. By appointment only, of course. So Liberty Square is one of a kind, and although Imagineers and Disney parks try to replicate lands throughout the world, this one is one of a kind. Like I said, it's the only place you can come see it is here in Magic Kingdom. And what's really unique about this place is there's actually 5 places to dine and only 3 attractions. So if you're a foodie, Liberty Square is the place to come, and they have a little bit of everything. You have Liberty Square Market, you have Diamond Horseshoe, you have Liberty Tree Tavern, you have Sleepy Hollow refreshments, and one of our personal favorites, you have the Columbia Harbour House. So speaking of food, colonists making their way over to the New World obviously spent an insane amount of time making that passage, that journey across the Atlantic, hitting New England, and what better way of welcoming people than with food? And that's why we are now in front of the Columbia Harbour House.
As you make your way into the Harbour House, you're going to see that it's definitely New England themed, right? Like you're aboard a ship. Because in that time period, if you did have to travel, you were on that ship for quite a while. Alright, so as you come into the restaurant, you're going to see a lot of modeled ships, scrimshaw, antique maps. It's a really fun environment. They're all on the walls and little displays. Now this restaurant is 2 stories, so that means you're going to have a lot to explore. So here is one of the details that we were talking about. If you look up on the 2nd floor, it looks like you're below the ship deck. How fun!
You can captain your own ship here. The captain's wheel. Navigating my way to dinner. Just outside the Columbia Harbour House, you'll notice what looks like a horse stall. Above the doors, you'll see a little plaque that has 4 hands clasping each other's wrist. Now, that was a very special insignia for its day. Benjamin Franklin actually founded what that company stands for, which is the Philadelphia Contributorship. And what they did was provide insurance against homes who were lost in fires. How cool is that? And so I guess if you were actually enrolled in one of these policies back then, you had to hang the sign out in front of your house. It's sort of like, you know, putting the ADT sign out there today.
In April 1775, the British had came up with a plan to come and steal the Patriots' stockpile of weapons and ammunition. The Patriots had found out about it, so they came up with a plan. They were going to hang a lantern in Boston's Old North Church. So 1 lantern meant that the British were coming by land. 2 lanterns meant the British were coming by sea. As Paul Revere rode by, he saw the lanterns and the way they were lit, and he rode through Massachusetts screaming, "The British are coming, the British are coming," all beginning the American Revolutionary War.
Up next, we have found ourselves under the cool and shady branches of a Liberty tree. Now, the first Liberty tree was planted in Boston, Massachusetts, and this would be the spot where all the colonists would come and express their grievances over King George III. Now, that idea and concept carried on throughout the colonies, where towns and cities planted their own version of the Liberty Tree. Now this Liberty Tree here in Walt Disney World was actually found on property and located here to Liberty Square. Another interesting fact is if you take a look at the branches, you'll notice that there are 13 lanterns hanging, which I think is kind of a nice touch.
You're on your own. Awesome. Wow.
So up next is actually kind of a gross, disgusting fact. But as we all know, the colonists, they didn't have indoor plumbing, they didn't have electricity. And as you make your way through Liberty Square, you may notice something very particular about the way they laid out the concrete. So either side, you may notice there's red concrete, and then down the middle, the flowing brown cobblestone looking kind of concrete aggregate. Anyway, there's a meaning for that, and it's sort of gross. It's because, again, there's no indoor bathrooms, and usually they'd have like a bedpan, and then it'd be thrown out in the streets. Thus, the little river that would float down your city street. It's pretty nasty. Now, luckily here in Liberty Square in Walt Disney World, there actually are bathrooms, but Imagineers fought the concept. They did not want to include bathrooms at all in any of the restaurants because they were not historically accurate. So if you dine at the Liberty Tree Tavern, make sure to note how small the restrooms are there. Now, if you go to the Columbia Harbour House, you may notice they're a little bit bigger, and there's a reason for that, because they're technically in Fantasyland.
As you make your way around Liberty Square, they have a lot of different housing and doors, and on the doors you see numbers such as 24, 26, 17, and have you ever asked yourself, what does that actually mean? I know I have. Well, what it is, if you add a 17 in front of it, it would be 1724, 1726. That is when these doors actually came into the architectural era of the homes. You can look really closely, you'll see the window designs, the door knockers, the handles, they all change with each of the doors. It's kind of a very interesting fun fact. Another fun Imagineering detail that they've added to this land is you see this little doll in the window. Well, what's the purpose of that? This is to symbolize to the firefighters that a child is located within the home.
Another fun history detail here in Liberty Square is actually on the buildings themselves. Take a look at the shutters. You may notice that they're slightly ajar, hanging off the building. That is actually on purpose. That's not like poor maintenance or anything. The colonists had to find scrap metal where and how they could because England cut off the metal supply lines because they were in fear of them making ammunition and also weapons, which obviously they were. So they took things like the brackets off of their shutters to help the war effort. Stepping into Yo Christmas Shop, you definitely want to maybe ignore a little bit of the Christmas decorations and amazing smells and take in how they themed this store. You'll notice that it's actually 3 homes within one shop. Just check out the floors, you'll see where the different homes are actually divided. Now look at the walls and pay attention to the decor that's hanging. You may notice that the first shop is actually a seamstress, the second shop is a woodworker, and finally, the last one's a musician. But not just any old musician, Ichabod Crane, because after all, Sleepy Hollow Refreshments is right across the street. While the Declaration of Independence declared that the colonists were free, the Constitution is actually what defines what a president is. And appropriately, we are now in the Hall of Presidents. Now, approaching the building, you'll notice that it is modeled after Philadelphia's Independence Hall, and that is both where the Declaration of Independence as well as the Constitution was signed. So really cool how they drew in that theming. Stepping inside the building, you're going to find some really awesome historical artifacts and pieces here, including an exact replica of the seal of the President of the United States of America, which we learned, and I think this is the coolest thing, it took an act of Congress for Disney to be able to display this here. That is the coolest thing, and it's right here in the lobby when you walk in the rotunda. Now up next, you'll also see lining the building is presidents, portraits of presidents, also artifacts from presidents, including James Monroe, Franklin Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington himself. Just some really, really cool pieces. Of course, we cannot leave the Hall of Presidents without some sort of tribute to Walt Disney, the man himself. And look at this portrait they have of him right next to this huge bust of Abraham Lincoln. And you'll notice that they actually pay homage to great moments with Mr. Lincoln, which is at Disneyland. And that is really sort of the attraction that started everything for Walt, leading up to the creation of this wonderful land.
Right across from the Hall of Presidents, we have the Court of Flags. There's 13 proud and colorful flags flying high in honor of the 13 original colonies. And in the center of this court, we have the Liberty Bell. For the United States bicentennial anniversary in 1976, 50 replicas of the Liberty Bell were going to be given to the 50 states. But Pennsylvania already has the original Liberty Bell and didn't need a replica. So upon realizing this, Walt Disney World reached out to Pennsylvania and asked if they could have their replica and display it here in Liberty Square. Pennsylvania finally agreed to this on July 4th, 1989, so a few years later. And here it sits in the current home in Liberty Square.
Well, everyone, I think that does it from a very fun day here at Disney's Magic Kingdom. We hope you enjoyed coming with us, checking out this inside look at Disney's architecture, Imagineering, and a little bit of history.
And we only did the tip of it. There's so much more to explore here in this area, and we hope you get to come and do it soon.
Absolutely. If you guys liked the video, make sure to hit like and subscribe.
And always, until next time.
Bye.